Good morning. My name is Paul Anigel. Just to begin, I felt like early in my life I thought I was the same race and color as other people, mostly because of my brown and red skin color and being surrounded by other kids that were like me. We all live in the same area. Things changed though, and I moved to different reservations, and I moved to inner city schools because I got in a lot of trouble. And that was when my racial identity really began to form, I think. Things that have helped me examine and further understand my racial identity development from our learning materials were some key concepts that I sort of grew onto, such as group association, role model association, my now my native cultural association and ties, which were back home, and also in considering how different my childhood community was compared to all of these other places that I kept having to move to across the United States, because our population is entirely Native American. I think that what mostly formed or informed me of my Navajo-ness was my active participation in our cultural ceremonies. It taught me my place amongst my people, how people are interconnected, how our family extends to the animals and Mother Earth, and our connection to various deities across the cosmos. My race, being Navajo, is everything to me. From sunup to past sundown, in the moment we wake up to pray, we are preparing for winter. We help our extended family, and prayers, at least for me, are said throughout the day. I think I first became aware of how different I was when I entered college because people did not go outside in the morning to pray. People did not prepare for intensive ceremonies in the summer or the winter. People dressed differently. There was no moccasin wearing, I guess. People spoke all different sorts of languages, and I seem to have been right in there with them, just as different as everyone else. I think my distaste and hatred of America's genocide of my people, my native people, manifested in my politically active artwork and in my writing. It was pretty intense and it was pretty negative and quite racist, I might add, toward the white man. So I suppose I chose to manifest my racial difference by pointing out all of our historical traumas in whatever ways that I could. And in looking back, it does feel odd to look back at my past and into that sort of thinking about compared to now, because I'm different now. Um, so on to the next part. I have experience in institutionalized racism, white privilege, white fragility, white supremacy, etc., 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 all throughout my time in medical school because I am a medical doctor. I was quite literally a target in the Midwest, of all places, for any such hateful groups. Classmates outright said I did not belong in medical school because I was Native. Authorities of all types followed me around and questioned me both on and on campus. I was hit in the head with a bottle thrown by a car. I was thrown off of a piggyback ride from someone because I was Navajo instead of being Ojibwe. Um, and when I actually started to have real troubles and issues with medical school, there were extremely vocal older white faculty doctors that wanted me out of medical school immediately. When white peers needed help, the entire class reached out to them. When they needed money through a fundraiser, the entire class and faculty would support them. And when I needed help, no one came to my aid. When people died in my family, no one helped me. Um, it's pretty hard. And I remember this one time when I wanted to present a presentation on Native cultural competency. I went out and I begged people for cash so that I could provide pizza for people for lunch because it was during lunch as an incentive to come and listen. And this had happened because a medical student arrived at a medical school party in blackface, and there was a bunch of white white ladies, white women dressed up in Native American regalia, and I said something about that, and I didn't go over very popular. I was kicked out of the party. I was called names. I was called all kinds of names. Anyhow, I felt that these white students there, were allowed to do whatever they wanted. They could get away with anything, literally, and if they got into trouble academically or not, they'd be allowed to slide. They didn't face these committees of older white doctors that I faced at all. It just was not fair. Now on to the next part, Erickson's questions. I actually am not a big fan of Erickson's model at all, but I'll honor and humor it for this assignment because in all actuality, I think that any points in our lives we are traversing his little stages daily, morning, noon, and night, and we are not at the ages that they're supposed to be matched up to be. That's just my interpretation, or yeah, my own interpretation of that. So, at the time, I was experiencing harassment, violence, anger, depression, despair, isolation, integrity, because what? I'm in medical school, shame, autonomy, what? I moved thousands of miles away to be a medical doctor, and etc., all at one time. Because I had to deal with these people every single day for months and years on end during heavy snowstorms that kept you inside with these people for months. Perhaps most of all, though, I could identify with Erickson's superficial stage of industry versus inferiority only because I felt like I was competing with other students to be the smartest. And of course, being a minority, it was already ingrained within my head that I was inferior anyway, so I had to try that much harder. So that's what I think of Erickson. Anyhow, next question, I want to talk about two things. Going back to my research project on the Indian Child Welfare Act, I think that through further policy change, that there should be an update on accountability and census for the children of ICWA, and even backlogging for the Native children that have been lost to the era before the Indian Child Welfare Act. I think this would help challenge many racial inequalities with regards to Native Americans in specifically. And lastly, to the many questions presented. Lastly, thinking back to all of my experiences with white supremacy and their privilege in medical school, I think now I feel more comfortable, and I would have stormed into those committee meetings full of white people more with Native allies from AIM, because AIM came from Minneapolis, and that's where I went to school. I would have had their presence more. I would have had my Native doctors. I would have reached out to them. I would reach out to other tribal members. I would have really utilized my group association with Native Americans, and then I would have begged for their help. And I should have, but I didn't do this till the end. I should have threatened racial inequality. I should have threatened outright racism and sexual harassment. Because I didn't do that until the very last meeting with this committee of faculty doctors. And after I did that, I was left alone to complete my studies and to just get out of there. So that's my spiel on my racial identity development. I hope I covered everything. Well, you have a good day and be happy you're not on our reservation because we have to chop wood today. Bye.